Hello and welcome as we continue to talk about charts. In the last video, we created some pivot chart and we went to insert and then we looked for pivot chart. Now the pivot chart uses the data in the employee data worksheet. So all we did was to highlight the whole worksheet, in other words, wherever there is data. Now there is another set of charts, these ones which are not the pivot chart. So for you to use them, if you click, for example here, it will tell you that you must first select a range of data. So these are charts that don't depend necessarily on a pivot chart. They work with any type of data. So if I have, for example, city as a column and population as another column, then I say Vinduk, Oshakati, Rundu, Sogokmund, etc. Then I go to the population and say 200,000. Oshakati, I say 150,000. Rundu, I say 75,000. Swakopmund, let's say 80,000. So this is data in a table. So we highlight that data. Then we go to the recommended tables. Now it will accept and give us suggestion of the kind of chart that we want. So for now it suggests 3: the bar chart with Vinduk, Oshakati, Rundu, Swakopmund, and then the population this side, or a pie chart, or another clustered bar that is going sideways, where the cities are on the left and the population is down here. So for now, let us select our pie chart and say OK. So now we have created a simple graph just from a table that I just created. Okay. Right, so from a table that I just created, we now have a pie chart. So I put this simple table here so that when we do the next chart, you have got an idea of why we must first create the pivot table. Because the pivot table helps us to summarize real life data. In this case, I simply guessed the information. But in real life, we want to summarize this information which is in the employee data. So we need to create a table that has this resemblance with a column and values, right? So we can use the same job title and branch parameters that we used in the previous tables. So let's go down maybe to 110 and we first insert the pivot table so that we get a table like this one. So I say insert pivot table and then I select my data range from employee. So I must start from A1, make sure, go to the very end, yes to retirement. Right, and press enter. Then we say OK. So to begin with, I'm just going to start with one parameter, which is the job title. So we want to see how many people are in each job title throughout the company. So simply click on job title, and then it gives you the job titles there. And then we now go to the names of the people. Full name, we drag it to values, right, so that it gives the sum, right, the total. So what you can do is come here where it says count of names and rename it and call it employees. Call it employees. So it will allow you to rename as long as there is no duplicate, right? And this one we can also change it to job title and press enter, so that the names, they make sense when we do our graph. So now that we have got this table, I can now highlight just up to lecturer. I will leave out the grand total, right? So I highlight up to lecturer, then I go to insert, then come to recommended graphs. You can either use recommended graphs, or you can go already to any one of these that you can see here, right? So I go to recommended graphs, and then let me pick this three-dimensional looking graph, right? So I pick that one and I say okay. So you can see now it gives me a graph with accountant, HR officer, and lecturer. So those values of 15, 17, and 32. So what happens now if we want to split these according to the branch? So all you do is simply add the branch parameter. Click on branch. So now you see that for the accountant, you see how many are at head office, how many in Ngwediva, how many in Rundu. You come to HR, how many in head office, Ngwediva, Rundu, and so forth. So if you want to switch to put the branch here and the job titles there, all you do is you first remove the job title so that you remain with branch only. So now this chart is simply telling us how many employees are at head office, in Ngwediva, in Rundu. So when you now click on job title, it is now splitting the employees at head office according to the job title, right? So now we have head office down here, accountant, HR officer, and lecturer. In the previous one, we had accountant, then it shows us accountants at Rundu, at head office, and Ngwediva. So it's up to you to just play around with these values. You can click whatever department, it will show department, you remove it, whatever you want, literally, as long as it makes sense to you, right? So now I've put the element of age in there, so you can actually have a chart that combines many different parameters on it. But the important thing is to firstly create the pivot table that has got the summary information you want. Once you have it, then you can play around with how that information is presented. So we have done a number of pivot tables and a number of charts. So this should give you an idea of what you can do with these tools. So we don't have to go through every different type of chart. You can just play around with that information yourself, because if you want a line graph, all you do is simply come where you're dealing with line graphs, lines here, columns, etc. Okay, so I'd like you to go ahead and play around and insert a number of these graphs, and charts in your worksheet, so that when you submit them, I'll be able to see what you managed to achieve. So you don't have to make them look exactly like mine. What is important is simply to see that you have grasped the concept, that you are able to create a table, and that from that table you can actually generate a graph. So I'm going to see you in the next video. So see you later.